Okay, what we've done and what we're doing is we're going to epoxy our rear stabilizer in. And what I've done is I put tape everywhere that I don't want epoxy. The only place I want the epoxy to go is right through that small gap right there into the airplane, top and bottom. The other side is taped off so that none of the epoxy runs through it and comes out the bottom side. You know, the thing is you don't want to make a mess that you got to turn around and clean up. So if we take our time and prepare our area for working, we can save ourselves a lot of time and effort in the future of having to clean up something. And you just don't want to have to spend a lot of time sanding epoxy out of an area that you didn't want it to start with. So, 6-minute epoxy. Mix it up in equal amounts. We stir it up real good. Back in the olden days, you could either get epoxy in little lead tubes that had about a ½ ounce in them, and spend $3 or $4 for a tube of epoxy and a ½ ounce of epoxy in a tube. Or you go to the big stores and buy the DevCon 5-minute epoxy in the half-pint cans and a pint can. That's what we used to do, is we buy it in a half-pint can and get us 2 ketchup bottles, and we'd pour the epoxy into the ketchup bottles. We'd have a large amount. Now I'm going to just pour this right along the edge here. And let it soak right down in that crack, because it's got nowhere else to go but right down in that crack. Now while my epoxy is still liquid, pull off my protective tape and discard it. Because it's got epoxy all over it. But I don't have any epoxy on the plane. How about that? All of it went right down that crack to glue that stabilizer nice and tight. Now I have to do the same thing on this side. Put my protective tape on here. just like that. And mix up some equal parts of epoxy. I tell you, we're right in the middle of the coronavirus situation, and around my household you wouldn't even know there was such a thing as a stay in or concealed confinement or anything else, because this is what we're going to do anyway. We're going to stay and build airplanes. There we go. Like I said, before our epoxy starts getting hard, we want to take off our protective tape. Because we don't have to fight about getting that off of there. And we just let that sit there and sit for a while, let it cure up real nice and good. Even though it is 6-minute epoxy, you don't want to rush it. All right, we're back at the shop, and what we're going to do at this next step is we're going to make our fillet between our horizontal stabilizer and our vertical stabilizer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get me some tape, and I'm going to tape this off, and then I'll come back and we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blue fine line tape. It's a vinyl tape, which means it stretches and it goes around curves really nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around this curve first. Get my little duster brush, get this dust off of here. And I'm going to start right there. And I'm going to pull this around, keeping identical space between my tape and my stabilizer. Now this tape will stretch. However, don't stretch it too much, because if you do, after a while, your tape will actually let go and come off of your plane. All right. Now, I hate sanding just like everybody else does. And that's the reason for this tape, is to prevent all the sanding. Now, got that put on there. Now I'm going to put another piece of regular tape on here just to give me some working room, because I don't want the filler material all over my airplane where I've got to just clean it up later, you know. All right, got it taped off just the way I like it. You could get this blue tape made in the USA. And I think it's made by 3M. But you can get it off of eBay. You can get it off of any paint automotive supply store. All right, I've got it all taped off. Now what we're going to do, we're going to mix up a little Cavasil. I've already got some mixed up here, but I don't think it's going to be enough. But I'll tell you what, we're going to try it anyway, because it may just be enough to do it. Because it doesn't take much to make these little fillets that I'm making. I don't want them real big. Little hardener. And then we mix it. If you ever messed around with Bondo on a car, this is about the same kind of stuff, but this is not as thick and as coarse as Bondo. And it's a heck of a lot easier to sand. Oops, I make a boo-boo. I forgot to put my tape on this side. There we go. Now you see I let the point of my spatula do all the work for me. There we go. Okay. You know, if you clean your tools up with a little acetone or alcohol before you let the material set in, it's just so much easier to clean up, believe me. Even though on this one I don't have any hardener mixed in it, still want to get it cleaned off and get it wiped down. That way it's nice and clean for the next time I want to use it. Get this messy stuff out of the way, and we're going to pull our tape off. There we go. Damn tape sticking to my fingers. And there, gentlemen, we have a fillet completely around our horizontal stabilizer. And I'm going to take my little sanding thing with jig. I'm going to take my sanding block that's got the rounded piece to it. And then I'll take that and I'll just sand right inside that edge there all the way around and make it nice and smooth. And that, my friend, will be ready to put primer on it. So, like I said, you want to keep it easy peasy. Don't make it harder than it has to be. Make it enjoyable. So, that's done for now. I'm going to let this set up good for a while. Then I'll come back and I'll sand it down. So, until then, be safe.